Hey everybody, it's Glenn from Third Millennium. Got a quick video for you today on the Windblocker speaker setup in the second generation Miatas. Now we already had a video where we went over a lot of this in terms of the basic installation. However, if you're retrofitting one of these Windblockers into your second gen Miata, and you just pick this up salvage. In other words, they only came on the best we know, they only came on the 2004, 2005, the LS and the Mazda speeds. However, the mounting for these will fit in any of the second gen cars. So if you can go out and hit the salvage yards, pick up one of these Windblockers, you can get something that really will help with the sound in your Miata. So if you can actually get one of these, our M200 speakers will fit right into place. Now, there's two variations. The one that we did in the other video, and I'll have a link below for that because it goes through the whole install. That one would be the Windblocker that came in the LSs, which is basically just a couple of small speakers out in the ends and some wiring that went back to the center and a harness that came out the bottom to attach into a little line that came up under the carpet in the right in that rear shelf between the seats. However, we've had a bunch of people ask us about what to do about if they get one of these Windblockers that came out of a Bose. And so it's a little different. So we're going to show you the parts that are different in this video. So actually that's what I got right here. This is a Bose Windblocker. And what makes this thing actually unique is that they stuck a little amplifier in here. Now this is actually, it's interesting. I don't know what the specs are in this one, we haven't tested it, but it's the same amplifier case and circuit board that's in the second gen Bose cars for the door speakers. This one has a little bit of extra circuitry to operate it. So this is different. You got to deal with the question of what do you do with the input connection for this and how you get the sound to the speakers. So in this video, we're going to get zoomed in on this, show you how to take care of this, and also show you what the difference is for the speakers up in the ends. So I'm going to reposition the camera. We're going to tackle the amplifier connection here first, and then we'll look at the speakers in the ends. Okay, so here we go. Let's do a little close-up of what we're working with here. Windblocker, the end pieces and so forth, all the same between the Bose and the non-Bose model. The only difference is we've got this little amp in here and then this multi-pin plug that actually feeds both some power into this and then also the left and right signals. Now, once you pull this out and get set up with it, I've already got the cover off of this one for you. What I want you to see, first of all, running from the ends is this. It's actually a red and a dark green wire, and same thing on the other end, red and dark green. We need to actually come up with some way to bypass this amp, and yes, it's not worth trying to use this. The M200s, even though they're much wider response than the little speakers that are in here, you don't need much power for them. So our recommendation is use the built-in amp on your head unit, set the fader up for the rears for this, and then if you're going to install an amp, use a 2-channel amp, take care of the doors. These are only supposed to be a little bit of fill, so your balancing on this is to just get these dialed up enough so that you can just hear them. You don't want it any louder than that. You want to keep the doors primary so that you're keeping the stereo stage in front of you, left and right, and you've got good bass. The M200s that we sell for these are effectively extended range, mid-range speakers. So you don't have any bass coming out of this. You don't want this to be primary. You just want this for fill for the road noise. So our recommendation, just take the whole amp out of here. You'll save another pound of dead weight in your car. And we're going to make our connections directly to the speaker wires by putting on a new plug. The plug we're going to use is a standard Molex 4-pin connector. We sell these actually on our site. I think they're $5 or $6 for a set of, I think it's a set of 4 actually. So what we're going to do, we're going to, and I'll describe this and we'll put the camera up and do it, we're going to cut off the speaker leads off of this large multi-pin connector that's here, take the amp out, and then I'm going to show you crimping these leads onto one of these new connectors. All right, first thing, let's get this guy out of here. It's got one of those squeeze-in plastic connectors that what you need to do is from the bottom squeeze the two sides together so that you can pull it up. When you have some sort of this is a tweezer, you can also get needle nose that are right angled like this. That works perfect for doing this. If you don't have something like that, you can cut this off and leave it too. It really doesn't make that much difference. Okay, let's move this back over. We've got this large multi-pin plug on the amp, and it's held in with just an edge clip. And to get this out, which comes out as one piece, you just need to push the three of these back as you're pulling this thing up. Out it comes, like this. At this point, I'm going to say, let's just take the amp out of here and we can toss it. All right. Now it comes. There's not much to these amps. And just by the way, just in case you're interested, just in terms of a little bit of Bose trivia, of course the Miatas and other cars, recent vintage, are famous because they used the 1 ohm woofers in the doors. The Bose speakers that are actually in this wind blocker, as well as in the doors on both the second and third generation Miatas, the small Bose speakers, the little 3-inch or whatever they are speakers, they're just regular 4 ohm speakers. The amps are the same, it just means you get reduced power output when you drive into a 4 ohm load versus a 1 ohm load. Interestingly, what Bose did, 1 ohms for the door speakers, nominal impedance, and then 4 ohms for everything else, tweeters and full ranges that they put around the car. That's just the way that they, just the way they did it. Okay, so now what we got is our connector here that has, let me get this centered up for you so you guys can see it. There we go. You'll notice that the wiring for the, if it's still all intact as it originally was, for the speakers that are at either end of the wind blocker are just tucked under this center connector here. And they're again, the red and the dark green that are here. You just cut those off close as you can to the plug, at which point you're done with the plug. Okay, so now this leaves you with these enough room that you can put the plug on and extend it down a little bit below the wind blocker next to where the plug is going to come up out of the car harness that you're going to put on. So our next step is just going to be to strip these down, crimp on the connectors for our 4-pin Molex here, and then we'll deal with the speaker on the end. Give you a look at that. This is a nice pair of wire strippers we have here. If you don't have any wire strippers, we sell a basic crimper for dealing with Molex on our website for pretty short money. It's actually made by Waldom, and it has two things on it. It has a basic wire stripper here, and I think these are 18 gauge or 20. I think they're 18. And then it also has the special crimper here for these little pins that Molex connectors use. Let me give you a close-up of these pins just so you see what it is we're working with here. Get that to focus. They have a small cavity for the wire and two crimp positions, one for the wire and one for the insulation. The back one is meant to go over the insulated part of the wire, and then the short front piece is going over the actual wire itself. So the basic operation of this, you have two indicators on here, A and B. The B would be the one that we would use for this small front connector, and basically you just put the piece into the crimper, set the wire in like so, and go ahead and just a gentle squeeze. You don't have to get crazy on these. And that's in place. And then the second crimp is just to snug it onto the insulation, and same thing. You're just basically folding these pieces over to help give a little extra holding power. When you get done, you have something that looks like that. And again, these are a very secure connector. They've been around forever, and the reason they've been around forever is they just work. So I'm going to go ahead and do these others, then we'll put the plug on and I'll show you how to do the labeling on that to keep that straight. Okay, so here we go. We've got those crimped on. Now the next thing is, and this doesn't matter specifically, but we got to keep track of plus and minus on these things. Now, the connectors for the M200 speakers, we've built them so that they fit directly into the wiring that is on the ends of the speaker to both ends. So if you were to trace this out, you would find that the red lead here corresponds with the plus on each speaker. Now we have 4 positions in the connector that come out here. And by the way, on these little ears that come off, these are for mounting into a electrical panel. I usually just snip those off if I'm not going to be mounting into a panel, because they're not needed. We have 4 connectors that are going to go in here. All we need to do is keep track of right and left, plus and minus. So my suggestion is take this and just decide on what you're going to do and mark it right onto the side of your connector here. So I'm going to call this top one, I'm going to call it right plus, right minus, left plus, left minus. With speakers, polarity is always super important, so make sure you keep plus to plus, minus to minus. And then the way these go in, they simply push into place, and you'll hear a little click when they go in. If you get them in and then need to change it, it's a pain in the neck. They make a special removal tool for these things that actually is a round sleeve that slips over the pin, because there's little locking tabs that stick out. My advice, well, you can get that at some different places. Just make sure that you're putting them in the right place before you slide them in. So, slide it in, and there's the click, and it's in place, and it's sticking out this side. Just like that, and then they're ready to go. So what you put on your wires that you're bringing up from the radio is going to be the opposite plug here to pick this up, and just follow that same convention. I loop these back into the connectors here like this, and I just leave it. I mean, there's really not anything else that you need to do with this. You can, in fact, do some stuff here with some cable ties to neaten it up, but this is actually the way it was. It was left open underneath here. Just put this cover back on, and you should be fine. I'll get the camera repositioned, and then we'll jump down to the other end and take a look at the Bose speakers. All right, so we got the plug on here. I've turned this around. We'll work on this end. They're the same. It's just mirror on the different ends. There's 2 covers that you got to remove. There's one here that covers the wiring connector, and then this one, which is actually where the speaker is mounted. So the wiring connector, if you look, there's a little pry slot down here, and it is a pry up, and it's clip on the bottom, a single connector here that actually releases the speaker from the wire, and it's one of the situations, there's a little press release on the side to actually pull that out. And then this cover comes off. There's a notch back on the inside here. and just snaps into place like this. And here's your speaker. Now, the Bose speaker, I think you'll be shocked when you actually see it. 4 Phillips head screws, and then the wire is just tucked underneath here. So press the release up here. That pulls the wire out, and you can just sneak it down under the plastic here. And then 4 Phillips head screws. Now, we supply some new screws with the M200 kit, which are a fine-tooth stainless steel screw. Use those and do not reuse these. You probably could reuse these, but the reason we put them in is we've noticed that on these wind blockers that we've worked with, there is a fair amount of variation on these mounting holes in terms of where things center up. So sometimes some people will have some trouble restarting these, other people won't, but we have found that if we put in the fine tooth, and we also like stainless hardware in a car, that it actually solves the problem. So the Bose speaker is mounted in a little plastic carrier. I would say this was originally designed for the non-Bose speaker, because this fits the speakers that are in the LS that are a little bit different. Okay, and so here's what you have. Actually, take this off. Part of the reason why these sounded so awful, I'm not going to pick on Bose specifically here. Bose, I'm sure, had input on the design, but Mazda has always been notorious for putting lots of tweeters all over the place. It's actually kind of common with Japanese speakers. And Bose essentially used this as a tweeter, although anybody that would use a little 1.5-inch paper cone driver for a tweeter, it's going to have a big upper mid-range peak, and it isn't going to sound very good. So this is what you got, again, that you got for the, I don't know, this was like a $700 option for this Bose sound system in the vehicles. And you can see they've got a 50 volt 10 microfarad cap on here, which means this is a 6 decibel per octave Butterworth high pass filter. So this is not going to produce anything below 4,000, about 4,000 hertz, 4,000 cycles, as opposed to the M200s, which we cross over around 250 cycles. So these speakers get all the vocals, mid-range, most of the instruments, and so forth, which is why these sound so good, and this sounds like something that makes you want to take a handful of aspirin. So again, just a philosophy. Same thing on all of you guys that have the NBs. The little tweeters in the doors are another little nasty speaker like this, crossed over very high, pointed right at your head. So anyway, that's what that is. So if you take the M200 speakers, you will find that when you get them, the harnesses are put on in a specific orientation to match up with the way that the side that you're working on. So what you want to do with your M200 is simply feed through the new connector, set it into place, and again, remember what I said about the wires, or excuse me, about the screws. I'll show that you can. This one isn't too bad in terms of alignment on the screws. And then up on the connector, this can't go in the wrong way, so just plug it in till you hear it click, sneak the wire underneath. Now, I don't have it here, but when we ship the kit, we give you acoustic foam, which, in case you didn't know, when you use acoustic foam in a speaker enclosure, which is what this is, it actually acoustically makes the properties of the enclosure larger than it actually is. So that actually helps a little bit with the frequency response, which is why we give it. So just loosely pack that around in here, and then cover just snaps back into place, and then the other cover here, and you're all set. So okay guys, that's it. I hope this helps you out. It is definitely recommended if you can track down a wind blocker for your second generation Miata, 1999 through 2005. Remember, they were only on the 2004s and 5s, Mazda Speeds and the LSs. But if you can grab a hold of one, it's a definite good upgrade to do for the car. It really does help with the wind noise. And with the M200s in there, you get some nice warm mid-range and vocals that really help fulfill in the system. And of course, we recommend our M800 speakers for the doors, the perfect complement of it. For the doors, we have some other videos. Check those out on our site that go over installing our speakers into the doors, the M800 speakers. So we've got the second gen car, second gen Miata, really well covered in terms of getting you guys some nice audio. So I hope this helps. If it has, give us a like down there. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. We'll have more Miata sound, some other technical audio videos that we'll continue to put out, and we've got some more stuff coming for both the third and the fourth generation cars as well. So make sure you check back with us. Thanks very much.